Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We are back. Look, it's the result none of us wanted. It was the show we all dreaded. Tottenham Hotspur are out the FA Cup following a 1-0 defeat to Manchester City in the fourth round. Controversy, of course, will surround the goal itself and the manner of how City scored it. We'll get into all that and more. I'm pleased to say joining me back on the couch, back to therapy, unfortunately, for this edition of Last One Spurs. I'm joined by the wonderful Russ Williams, broadcast extraordinaire, actor TJ Ramini, and Matty Hayes. Look, I know for many out there, the FA Cup's a generational trophy. For I know that a lot of the younger viewers and listeners, I know it's all about the top four, the Champions League. For maybe some of the older clientele out there, that Spurs fans, I know the FA Cup is very much deep-rooted. I know for the interviews and the shows we've done this week, I know the FA Cup was dear to many, many people on this show. So look, I'll be honest, devastated that we've gone out. I know I said earlier, it's harder to accept when you go out to the lower league teams, but given the fact and the narrative and how we've gone out to City in that manner, I'll be honest, I feel so crap as I did after going out to the likes of Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest and the rest of them. So where do I start? Matt, I am going to open up with you. Oh, mate, Spurs out the FA Cup. A late goal from Nathan Ake, which I've got to be honest with you. I mean, I've looked at that several times, was somehow not ruled out. I thought that on the whole we battled well, but in my opinion, we just had that real killer instinct in the final third on the night. I mean, Matt, give me your thoughts on the back of that defeat, which sees Spurs exit the competition.
Look, if I were to give you a short answer, I'd say I'm heartbroken and I don't want to be here. But we've got a bit more time to fill than that. Look, it's devastating, and to lose it in the way that we did so late on in the game is a really tough one to take. On the night we weren't good enough. I thought some players played really, really well. Some players didn't perform to the levels that we've come to expect of them, and we'll get into the details of that, I'm sure, as the show goes on. But I do think context is important, and I know the kind of rationale and a more kind of analytical or logical view of the entire situation is a tough one to take when we just had to stomach that. We've had to watch what we've watched and accept that we've lost the game so late on when the mood around the club has never been as big as it is. But I think the reaction, I've seen people calling the players a disgrace. I've seen people say, calling Ange out for his decision making. I don't think the performance was good. I don't think Ange got everything right. But we need to realise that what we saw out there tonight was a Tottenham Hotspur team that's 6 months into a project that is completely transforming everything about this club, not only in terms of quality, but in terms of style. We were parking the bus last season. Yeah, look, we beat them last season parking the bus. Fantastic. If you want to take that as a win, do. But we're completely different to what we were last year. We're a much, much better team. It just didn't work out for us tonight. But that's a team 6 months into a project against a team who are 8 years into the most successful project English football has seen in recent years outside of Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United. And that the context there for me is extremely important. And look, I know in cup games, it's 90 minutes of 11 men against 11 and a couple of subs to come on and help them. And in that context, we were second best and probably deserved to go out. But I do think we need to look at the bigger picture here and realise that under Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho, these games were potentially era-defining because all it was about was winning trophies now and instant success, which we didn't get with those managers. But with Ange, it's about so much more. And I'm gutted, I'm heartbroken, and I would do anything for that game to have gone the other way tonight. But I do think we need to look at the bigger picture and not lose faith in what's happening, because some of those players are exceptional. Some of the performances we've seen this season were exceptional. And yeah, let's not overreact, basically is what I'm trying to say.
Can I just say, Matt, I'm so pleased I come to you first because you've given me some kind of hope there to lynch onto. Because I'll be honest with you, as I've said on numerous occasions, just how important and vital the FA Cup was, as is the League Cup was to this season. You know, for me, the domestic cups are so important. They're up there for me, as I say, with the biggest games of the season. I mean, Russ, if I can come round to you, then I'll go to TJ. Look, the stats are quite cold-hearted, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is City did out possession in the fact that they had 57%, Spurs 43%, but the most telling of all, City 18 shots on target to Tottenham Hotspur's 1. 1 shot on target all game from Spurs, 5 in City's favour. Look, it is a gut punch of a result for Spurs, given the manner of the goal and the manner of how it stood. We'll come on to that shortly. But, I mean, overall, Russ, can we have too many complaints? I mean, this Baron Trophy run goes on. But, I mean, I think as Matt says there, you probably back Postecoglou to end it on the basis that, we're in a start of a project here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Matt summed it up perfectly, really. We shouldn't overreact, but to me, two things were obvious. We were playing the European and Premier League champions who move the ball around like clockwork. And the other, I'm sorry to say, reason is Rick and everybody else, we simply were not good enough as a collective. But for our defenders and Vicario, I think it could have been 4 or 5. I mean, we just weren't at the races tonight. There was an element for me of rabbits in the headlights, particularly in midfield and up front. Our front three didn't really work together. And I think it's worth pointing out that our recent successes against City were because we had Harry Kane and Sonny, who used to keep a lot of their players on their toes. And we haven't got those players at the moment. One is away and one is now planning his trade in Germany. And, however we try and look at it, Richie ain't no Harry Kane. And if you don't give the ball to the man with pace, which is Timo Werner, who was in loads of space, loads of times, and we didn't see him.
So many times, many times.
You cannot expect to have a good shot on goal tally and even score some goals. I mean, I did say to a pal of mine, on X, we DM during the game, I said, the only way we were going to score was a set piece. And the irony is we conceded a set piece to lose the game. But even the balls in from Pedro Porro tonight, for some reason, weren't up to the usual standard. It was a bit like, to me, we were overawed by City. And let's be absolutely honest, if they play like that, or even better, which they're capable of, they are going to beat everybody easily this season, even Liverpool. In fact, probably more so. But I thought defensively we were pretty good, and respect to the players. Mickey van der Ven, fabulous. Romero played a good game. Fullbacks were good. The goalkeeper, forget about the goal. Was it a mistake? Was it not a mistake? Was it a foul? Well, the officials said no, and it's a goal and we're out. So it's good night, Moss side, and we get on with the rest of our season. And that's no bad thing, because now we've got to go for Champions League football. But it is very, very disappointing with that amazing stadium full of our fans, hundreds of thousands of our fans who couldn't get tickets and are watching it on television, expecting Ange ball. But you're up against Pep ball, and that's the difference.
Russ, it's very hard to disagree with many of the points you're making there. I think one of the key frustrations, throughout the night, as you said, is that Werner, on countless of occasions, was in space. And I counted 3 or 4 in the first half alone, doubled it up, tripled it up in the second half, that guy was crying out for the ball. We never really got to see the bloke because he never was fed the ball to be a threat on the attack, which is absolutely so frustrating. I mean, TJ, bringing you in, you know what? When you think about all of City's class that they have in abundance with the team, it ended so uncharacteristic, the fact you have Ake bundling home after a corner, which again is debatable as to whether it should have stood. I know Spurs players were very, very unhappy that the goal was allowed to stand. But if we're going to be brutally honest, and I want to try and be, Ange's Spurs didn't really have a kick on the night. And I've got to be able to say that, at best towards the end, I was sitting there hoping for a replay. I didn't feel we had enough quality to get the win. And I just felt as that game went on, unfortunately, City's class told true. Spurs not good enough on the night. How do you see it for you, TJ?
Correct. Manchester City better than Tottenham? Yes. I don't think that's controversial or particularly surprising to anybody on this panel or anybody listening or anyone who follows this sport across the planet. Manchester City are the best football team in the world. And to all the points that have been made by this knowledgeable panel, and I was so delighted to be teamed up with the three of you this evening, we didn't really get going. I think when Russ was saying, I think we were a bit overawed, I could see that as well. Everybody was aware of the magnitude of this game and what it was meaning to us, and that it was our best chance at silverware, in 16 years. Are we still in the title race? Yes. Are we likely to win the league? That's debatable. We could have won the FA Cup. What I want to add to that is that we didn't really get going because of Pep and because of this City team. We've been so effective with these inverted fullbacks, with Udogie and Pedro Porro being able to push forward. The problem is that their left back and right back were pushed up pretty much the entire. I mean, how good was Kyle Walker tonight? Jesus, he's so good. I think I was reading something a few months ago with a shout that's saying, is Kyle Walker the greatest Premier League player ever? And it's going to take some beating. And obviously people are going to throw out, Henry or Harry Kane or Cantona or all these huge games. But Kyle Walker, I mean, he's consistently a 10. Whether he's playing for England, whether he plays for Tottenham, whether he plays for City, unbelievable. And to talk about Werner's pace, well, Kyle Walker wasn't worried about his pace in the slightest. No problem. There was one time that he was put through and Kyle Walker just turned on the afterburners and went like that. And not only won the ball off him, won a foul off him. And so, yes, it was disappointing. And of course, I'm crushed. Of course I am. We wanted to go on and win this game. But we've lost to the best team in the world with a controversial goal that I 100% think was a foul. I don't know how you back into the goalkeeper like that, jump with both elbows raised and with no attempt to play the ball and not have it be given as a foul. However, they had been doing that to us on previous corners. So we should have done something to protect our own goalkeeper. It's not like we don't have physical players either. If Vicario is having a problem, put some physical players and push these Manchester City guys away. So we were outclassed, boys. We were outclassed. But to Matty's point, we're 6 months into this new project. I'm not making excuses, guys. These are just facts. These are just statistics, just numbers. I've said that on this show before. Numbers don't have an opinion. They don't care. We're 6 months into a brand new project, going against the greatest manager pretty much of all time, against one of the best club teams, also arguably, of all time. And we've lost to a controversial set-piece goal in the 88th minute. So all is not lost. Yes, I'm gutted, but all is not lost, guys.
TJ, thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. Whilst we do bring Russ back, guys, I do just want to give a still of the actual goal itself, just so we can get this out of the way. Because again, I know it's, being debated, heavily debated, obviously, of course, around the world at the moment in terms of different, obviously, TV stations and such. This is probably not the greatest still to show, but for our watching audience here, listeners on audio, we're just going to try and provide some analysis as to what and how this goal has been counted. Now, as you can see there, Matt, coming over to you, believe it's Nathan Ake or Rodri there that's impeding Vicario from what we can see from this angle. I've got to say there's a few different angles that are open to debate as to whether the goal should have stood. Essentially, it was checked by VAR and was given as a goal. Matt, I know it's hard to remove a biased opinion, but obviously for a man like you that does work in and around football, was you surprised seeing that given due to the nature that we've seen previous decisions like this normally go in favour of goalkeepers?
It's a tough one. Look at the incident. If you isolate it from the rest of the game, if you look at that incident on its own, I think it's soft. And I think it's one of those that whatever decision was given on the pitch is what VAR would have stuck with. I think if the referee or the linesman had ruled that out as it happened, I think that would have stood. As Steve says there in chat, there it wasn't a clear and obvious error. Maybe that's not what he said, but I don't think it was a clear and obvious error. I think Vicario was weak, but as TJ said, it was happening all game, every single corner. There's even somewhere as they were lining up the corner, the camera panned to Dias and Vicario, and Dias was even shoulder barging him in the chest. For me, if I'm a VAR official, I'm watching that. I'm going to see that early on in the game, and I'm going to remember that. When Dias has been doing that the entire way through the game, I think the benefit there needs to be given to Vicario, and you could say that, well, Dias has been trying this all game. Not only has he been stood in an offside position as he's doing it, which again I think the VAR needs to be aware of, but the entire game, every single corner, he's barging Vicario. And yes, TJ, again, great point that we should have done something about it. But for me, the officials have to be aware of that, and you have to take that into consideration because, I mean, like you said, Ricky, there's no intent there to play the ball. The arms are up. His only intent there is to impede Vicario. And while Vicario should be stronger, I think in if you want consistency in all these decisions, there was one that went the other way. It was James Trafford in that Burnley game recently. I forget who they were playing, but every other decision you see like this goes in favour of the keeper. And look, what do we do if that consistency isn't there anymore?
It's a really difficult one, to be honest with you, because again, I say difficult for me. In the ideology of it being clear and obvious, TJ, you made a great point that this wasn't the first occasion this happened. They were doing this actually a number of times before the lead up to the goal. So when you look at it for you, TJ, I mean, is there a debate on that? Should that have been given?
I mean, to Matt's point and to a lot of the comments that are coming in, it is one of those ones that typically I did actually think that was going to be given as a foul. However, it's this clear and obvious thing, right? Which is one of the great frustrations of VAR. I think you either give authority or you don't. And so the fact that Dias has made no attempt to play the ball and his sole intent was to obstruct and disrupt the goalkeeper from being able to make a proper jump or a leap or an effort for the ball. Well, I mean, that has to be a foul because, of course, intent is so much of any kind of decision that can be penalised. You know, if there's intent, well, then, you know, you're not that he should have been yellow carded or whatever, but the debate of whether it was a foul or not, it, for me, is very obvious. Again, if it was the other way around, for example, I thought the goal that they scored in the first couple of minutes was onside. I thought that should have been given. To me, it looked like Van der Ven, and yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, where they've put the line for Bobb's boots, they've kind of put it right on the tip, but it's actually kind of up. So, you know, that looked onside to me, and so I am the kind of person that can look at a decision and go, well, I think that they've got that right. I think that they've got that wrong. So again, I don't want to spend too much time arguing it because, guys, it's been given. The bigger lesson is tonight that we have to improve. We have to get better. There are still players at the club who are not of the standard that we want them to be. But again, I know it's so difficult, but for everybody out there, try to have a little bit of pragmatism and look at Manchester City, how deep they are into this project. Look at their bench. If you want to kind of say to yourself, oh, this guy wasn't good enough, this guy wasn't good enough, this guy wasn't good enough. Look at who they have. I mean, look at who they have sitting on the bench. On the bench, Edison, Stones, Grealish, Doku, De Bruyne, Gomez, Nunez, and then a couple of guys that I've not heard of, and then Lewis, right? And look at our bench: Forrester, Royale, Davis, Dragozan, who's just arrived, Skip, Maddison, who's just come back after 11 weeks. Like some people saying Maddison should have started. Again, guys, you know, we're not at the club. I mean, do you not think that our coaching staff, whether you believe in Ange or you suddenly want him out, do you not think that Ange and his coaching staff are going to be looking at Maddison over the last couple of weeks of training and go, I think he could start against City on Friday? He clearly wasn't ready. And even when he came on with 20 minutes to go, he looked very reluctant to go into any kind of physical challenges. So if we did start him or bring him on at half time or something, he goes and gets injured again, people would be pulling their hair out, including me. And so I think we have to respect the decisions made by the managers. And yes, some players had a poor game, but we lost 1-0 to a controversial goal against the best team in the world.
You know what, we've had Ange come out in the presser, and Matt, I'll come to you. Ange just said, look, they're a top team. They're the benchmark. We're just not there yet. And he was asked about his opinion on the goal. He said, look, I'm sure they had a good look, and the referee and VAR didn't see anything wrong with it. The decision was made, and we have to accept it. I mean, Matt, give me your thoughts with relation to Ange's comments there with regards to the benchmark. Fair points for you, Matt?
100%. Absolutely 100%. I think... Like I think that's fact. I don't think that's something you can.
Yeah, it's irrefutable.
You can argue with. Absolutely, they are the best team in England. They're the best team in the world. They won the treble last season for a reason. And I think what some fans maybe are struggling to kind of understand within the context of this is that we're the first 10 games of this season were honeymoon period. We had an insanely strong 11 where all of them were playing absolutely fantastically. The opposition we were coming up against were kind of falling into a style of play that we'd like to play against. And I said this on the show, I feel like it might have been after the Chelsea game, Ricky, or after one of the games in and around that period.
Yeah.
Where I said that It might have been a few games later, actually, because I made the point that the first 10 games that we played is the absolute pinnacle of what this team can achieve this season. The next 5 games were the very bottom of what the season could become. And we were always going to middle out somewhere. We were always going to end up somewhere in the middle. And while I know it's incredibly frustrating looking at the way we played against Arsenal at the Emirates, the way we played the first 15, 20 minutes against Chelsea, the mentality and the drive that we showed against Liverpool, while it's so easy to look back at that and say, well, why can't we do that? Not everyone is going to perform at the absolute best level every single game, so I think the kind of the view of the actual quality of this team and the system and the project is a little bit skewed because of that. And again, I just want to specify, because I know comments can be taken out of context. I don't think we were good tonight. I think we should have been better. I think in a lot of areas we have ourselves to blame, but we also need to temper that expectation a little bit. And I felt we could have won that game tonight. Going into it, I was more confident than I've been against any other game against City that I can remember.
Totally agree.
But if someone had said to me, you're going to lose this game, I wouldn't have been surprised. And I wouldn't be fuming and going against Postecoglou and going against some of those players just because of it. That's the best team in the world.
Yeah. Fact. It's fact. They are the best team in the world. I mean, Russ, bringing you back in. They've tried to take your internet down twice, bless you. Thank you for finding a way. They have. I mean, look, we've had Ange come out in his presser just to bring you the comments, Russ. And on the game itself, he said, look, I just felt the second half was okay. The first half, we were far too passive. They got into their rhythm, and it's very hard to arrest that mid-game. Although we started the second half well. We defended well. It's not like Vic had a million saves to make. I'd say they've got 8 or 9 years on us, and I hope people have a little bit of perspective. That doesn't mean you don't tackle it. There's no excuses, but they're well down the line in being the team they want to be, while we've just started on that journey. And it's actually very reminiscent, Matt, to what you actually said in your opening intro of this show. And he went on to say, look, we fought hard to stay in the game, but to be honest, that's all we did. We stayed in the game. That wasn't enough tonight to get us over the line. And to be fair, I mean, look, Russ, you've been here after we've had Conte, I think Mourinho before. I would say from Ange, that's a fairly fair analysis of the game. Do you agree?
100%. I mean, he was obviously watching the game that nearly all of us were watching. And, there's very little you can add to that. I mean, the man is the manager, and he knows the football club a lot better than all of us do, because he's there at the coalface every day. I mean, he will, I'm sure, excuse me, be disappointed with the performance tonight. Reading between the lines, that's more or less what he said. First half far too passive. I mean, to play at home against a team who we know that we can compete with and have done consistently, and really just appear kind of devoid really of ideas, and nothing was coming off. We couldn't find the important players. We couldn't get the ball into the position on the pitch where we could even cross the ball to try and be a nuisance. It really was not concerning, isn't the word, but I think it underlines exactly where we are in relation to the top football clubs in Europe at the moment. And this is why I think it's extremely important to have a good finish to the season, get into the top 4, which is going to be not easy, but I think we're capable of doing it. And then testing ourselves in the Champions League and learning from that experience. But he's right. They're eight years down the line. They are essentially a country that you're playing with all their financial resources, which I know is another subject that we could move on to, but probably won't do tonight. And how they've been managing that, according to some people, isn't quite, good. But we'll wait and see. That's going to go through due process. But the harsh reality is, for me, is that our chairman, our board, are running our business at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club brilliantly. They brought in a very good manager. You can talk about net spend and all that. Somebody, I read a tweet the other day saying, yeah, but Daniel Levy's net spend since Ange has been there is £5 million. Well, it doesn't matter. He's brought in the personnel. But the harsh reality is that we, as fans, want a trophy. And once again, we're not going to get one this year unless some sort of miracle happens in the Premier League. And it did for Leicester. You never know. at our expense, incidentally. So we've got this habit of falling up short, and it's still within the club. And somehow Ange has got to sort of squeeze that, wring out the washing like your mum or granny used to do, get all that water out, and then we're good to go. And I think because historically, over the last 20 years or so, we've struggled as a football club to get over the line. I think it's when it's endemic, almost in the DNA, it's very, very difficult to get out. But the one thing I would say, and I was racking my brains about this, Rick, when was the last time we played well in a cup game? When was the last time?
It's a good question.
I was thinking that before the game. I was looking back at that Burnley game. I think they showed some of the highlights before it kicked off, and I was thinking about how poor we were in that. Even some of the games we won the last couple of seasons. But I felt going into the game that the mentality or approach would be different because it was Manchester City. For me, the problem in the other cup games is that we might think, well, it's only Forest, well, it's only Sheffield United, it's only Burnley, and that's cost us quite a bit. I thought that approach mentality would be different because it was City, but I think you're right, Russ. I'm not sure that was the case.
I think the last one, again, I'm just picking to the back of my mind, and people will not agree. Maybe the Preston game where Sonny scored, I think in the FA Cup, but you've got to go back a couple of years for that. And that, I think, is endemic to this issue we've got around cups, that for whatever reason, as you said, Russ, the mentality just isn't quite there. And I mean, again, Ange makes that point. Look, City are down 8 or 9 years into their project, as Matt, put at the start, and Ange referred to it as well in his presser. We are only 6 months in, but it is deeply painful that we aren't going to be contesting towards the latter stages of a cup competition again, and that anything is on the top 4. But I am conscious for many that is still really, really important. But I'm bringing you in, TJ. This is really the hard thing, isn't it? For some, top 4 is really, really important. And again, I know that does attract a higher caliber of players. It allows you maybe to retain some of your bigger stars. What's the learning curves, TJ, you take away from tonight? Because for me, my concern was in that last 10, 12 minutes. I mean, look, on a night like tonight, I think we're all really deeply hurt. We're not going to go through every game, an incident of it, because it is just really raw to do. But that last 10, 15 minutes, TJ, I think the heads were starting to go. I mean, Hojbjerg, not once but twice, was a lucky, lucky boy. The second one presents it right into De Bruyne's path. I mean, look, on any other game, De Bruyne is putting that in the back of the net, and it's irregardless what happens with the goal at the end because City go on to win the game by 2. I mean, is that a mentality problem for you that the players just can't keep their heads in these bigger games like this?
I don't think it was mentality. I think it was physicality. I think we were knackered. And I know that people are saying, well, we've not played in 12 days. And of course, that's true. But anyone who's ever played the game knows that if you don't have a lot of the ball, it's very, very tiring, especially if you're playing under a manager who insists that you press and insists that if you're an attacking player, you drop back and defend. And if you're a defending player, you push up and attack. So to me, it just looked like fitness. You could see a couple of players going down with cramp and things like that. And I'm just going to open myself up to a barrage of abuse here. I actually thought Hojbjerg had a really good game until the last 10 minutes.
Totally agree.
When he was absolutely dead on his feet. I would love it if somebody who's watching or listening could have a look at the amount of ground that he covered or the amount of interceptions that he made. And I bet it would be staggering. I'm not going to do that now, obviously being on the show, but he had a very, very good game. He was just exhausted. And to Matty's point, you can't expect perfection from any human being, especially perfection 100% of the time. They are all going to make mistakes, and those mistakes are going to occur with greater frequency when you're tired. And so, guys, we were just outclassed. We just were by the greatest team in the world, who are 9 years into a project. We're 6 months into a project. And so again, another thing that I'm going to, because the question was, Rick, what did we learn? And what I learned was, this is a positive thing. And again, I'm not trying to polish a turd here. People are saying about how often Timo Werner could have been played in and he was finding a lot of space. This is his 3rd game. You know what I mean? He just arrived. And so people saying, oh, well, he was always free and he never got played in. That's true, right? And that's frustrating for me. And I saw that too. However, the fact that he's making those runs, the fact that he wants the ball and he's been there for about 15 minutes is really positive. Cohesion is massive for any team, for any business. And so here's a new recruit. We just don't know how to make that play yet. And people saying, we're missing Sonny. Like, Sonny is the giant killer. Like, if City are afraid of anybody, they are afraid of Heung-min Son. And he wasn't there tonight. And we had this young German lad who's just come to the country, 2 weeks ago, trying to fill sizable boots. And he did his best. I don't think anyone could out there with a level head can say that every player didn't give it their all. Yes, Kulu had a poor game.
I agree with that. It's not an effort. It's not an effort issue tonight, TJ.
And listen, brother, we've been on here many times and slated players for a lack of effort. People saying, "Oh, Johnson wasn't affected again." I know he wasn't affected, and he wasn't effective. Sorry, he is a work in progress. I said it the last time I was on the show. He just needs to understand he has more time than he realizes, and then his crossing will improve. Go and get a bag of balls and say to Pedro Porro, "How'd you cross, by the way, mate? Because I'm not very good at that. How do you do that?" And he'll go, "Oh, like this." And so there are improvements that will be made, tiny little improvements that will move us on as a football club seismically. But it's not going to all happen overnight. I'm hugely frustrated, but there are so many positives about this club, about the philosophy, again, to Matty's point, about this manager, and also about our new personnel. So, the future is brighter than it has been for the last number of years.
Agree. Look, I've got to be honest, TJ. I think you guys are saying, I do. The more we're here, the more I feel a little bit easier. I'll be honest with you. I mean, look, I think we all feel the same, that when you get a result like that and we have to provide instant analysis of it, for many, it is stomach hard to take. Again, I think for all of us here, the cup meant a lot to us. So to go out of it in that manner when it's 87, 88 minutes, you've got to come on here 15 minutes later. It's a credit to these wonderful viewers and listeners that also join us, and these wonderful contributors that have given up their time to come here and try and give us some therapy on the back of it. And again, what I will just add to TJ's amazing point there is that, look, we are still without Sarr, Basuma, Sonny and Moore. Not telling everyone just to chill, but what I am just saying is that, as we've said throughout this first half hour of the show, it's really important to remember that it is just a work in progress. I know many are angry, many are frustrated. And for those that have followed Last Word on Spurs over the 6-7 years that we've been around, you guys know how deeply, to me, the cups do really, really hurt when we go out of them. And look, you guys know that top four is not really a massive achievement. Well, not a massive achievement. That's wrong for me to say. It's not, for me, the be-all and end-all. For me, a day out of Wembley would have been amazing to see these players under this manager who, can I be honest with you, I really, really like this team. I really, really like this manager. And it's a long, long time since I've been able to say that about a Tottenham team, that I actually really like this group. And that's why it's been so special to see this really young group at the moment get somewhere on the back of losing Harry Kane, with Maddison returning to the side, who got an absolute standing ovation, because there's a real genuine feeling that this group could do something special. And again, they may go on to do something special. We're only, like I say, 6 months into it. What we are going to do, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. I want to say a massive thank you. We've got over 1,500 of you watching us live here. Again, thank you so much for all your incredible support for the show. We appreciate it's tricky. We appreciate it's hard. We appreciate it's probably, you want to be anywhere else rather than listening or watching Last Word on Spurs on the back of a cup defeat. But I'm delighted to say we are joined by the wonderful broadcast extraordinaire, Russ Williams, actor TJ Ramini, and the brilliant Matty Hayes, who are guiding you through this Last Word on Spurs. And look, I think what many would like to maybe focus on the fact that, as we said about it being a learning piece, well, how far are we away? How long is it going to take? When are we going to get there? Because I know for many, although it's only 6 months, how much longer or how long can this wait go on without a trophy? And that's unfortunately something I don't think we can all answer tonight. I think it'd be impossible to do that. But what we can all hopefully see is a team coming together. And again, when I mentioned that point about where we are squad-wise, just to give you an insight into the lineups of this game, obviously Spurs, as we saw, the headline news was James Maddison being back in the squad, but ultimately it was just the one change with Dejan Kulusevski coming into the side. Now, obviously Ben Davies, Dane Scholar also returned to training earlier just ahead of the game, and we're back amongst the subs. Dejan Kulusevski, of course, got over that illness in the 2-2 draw. Look, Emile Hojbjerg got the nod ahead of Oliver Skipp, and all I can say is what TJ put so succinctly is Hojbjerg, for me, was one of the best performers on the night. And look, if everyone's going to perform like that when they want to move away from the football club, give me some of those players because he put his absolute body on the line several times for the club. But I don't think you could ask anything more than that. I mean, team-wise, Spurs lined up: Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, Hojbjerg, Bentancur, Kulusevski, Johnson, Richarlison, Werner, with a bench of Forster, Dragoshin, Davis, Emerson, Skip, Maddison, Hill, Santiago, Scarlett. For City, it was a Ortega in goal. They had the defence of Walker, Diaz, Ake, Gvardiol, with the midfielder Rodrigo, Kovacic, Bernardo, Foden, Bob up front. Their bench cities, which we said about earlier: Ederson, Stones, Grealish, Doku, De Bruyne, Gomez, Nunes, Sissoko, Luis. Now, I don't know, again, guys, whether you had an opinion on this, Matt, coming around to you. When I WhatsApped you, Matt, earlier, and I said to you, I think Maddison is benched, you said to me, you've crushed my dreams. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Matt. But how much do you feel was a massive direct influence of Maddison not being there to start with, given the fact that in the build-up to the week, and this is not to go in on the Spurs social media team as such, there was heavy promotional of the fact Maddison was back, he's training, we've got Ange saying on the day before the presser he could be fit to start and available. Did that one really throw you, Matt, by him not starting the game, and did that have a detrimental effect by him not starting, in your opinion?
I actually, interestingly, was the other way. When they started putting up all those posts about Maddison, I actually posted myself that it seemed a little bit fishy because of how quiet we've been about Bentancur coming back and Van de Ven and Romero, and even Davis tonight, who, if I'm not mistaken, was back on the bench ahead of schedule. The fact that we were pushing it so much, I kind of felt as though it was trying to throw City a curveball and, you know, kind of change their last minute preparations to expect a James Maddison, which I'd hoped would happen, but wasn't exactly expecting. Look, it's always detrimental to whatever you're going to attempt to do when your best player that's available, like obviously Son at the AFCON, when your best player that's available isn't on the football pitch, you're going to be worse. For me, I would say we are more affected by the underperformance of Kulusevski than we were by the absence of James Maddison, because we haven't had James Maddison for 81 days, but hey, who's counting? And Kulusevski has gone in there at times. Lo Celso has gone in there, and they've both done well. So I don't think Maddison's absence is I don't know how to phrase it, maybe enough of a reason to fixate on why that performance might not have been up to par. But of course, it would have been a lot better if he had been in there. I do want to say, I forget who made the point earlier, but when he came on, he did look a bit tentative, and he played one or two great passes, but he seemed a bit reluctant to get involved. He seemed he was just wary. You know, when you've missed 11 and a half weeks, you're not going to want to fly into challenges, especially with the nature of the injury that he had. You know, maybe a little bit different for Van de Ven, who had a muscle injury, but for Maddison, it was an impact injury. So you're going to be a bit reluctant. So had he started, would we have been better? Yes. Would we have been better to the point that we would have won that game? I'm not so sure.
I mean, interesting, Russ, come over to you. He was asked about Maddison pre-match. He said, look, he was as close as anyone else, but obviously he hasn't played for quite a while. And I'm mindful of the fact that I reckon there'll be a fair bit in the game early. And to be fair, there was. I mean, City could have been ahead in the first minute. We'll come on to that in just a second. But having him to come on could be helpful for us. I mean, Russ, was you disappointed Maddison didn't start, or could you understand the fact that he's been out for 3 to 4 months? It's a high-intensity game. Can you just throw him in to Man City? The champions, of course, of Europe, one of the best teams in the world, or if not the best.
I would have had him on the bench. So I think the manager did the right thing then, because he is such an important player to our team when he's fully fit. And we've got some big games coming up, not least Brentford, of course, next week, a really important game in the league. And I do believe that it would just be our luck, you know, if something happened. So caution was, I think, the right thing to do, Rick, to be honest with you. But like Matt, if I could just say a word about Decky, to me, he's not number 10. And we really do have to stop this now, if it's possible. I mean, I know when everyone's back and fit, he'll be back on wide again. But this experiment with him as a number 10, I don't think has worked for me. He just looks ineffective.
Okay, interesting. I mean, TJ, let's get your thoughts. You agree on that with Decky? I mean, that guy has played a varied amount of positions so far for Spurs. The argument was, I think, tonight, again, is obviously with Maddison not being on the pitch, you obviously allow Decky to be that creator. Would you agree with Russ that it's just simply not working having that position, or do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to let the results and the performances speak. And to that point, Russ is absolutely right, as he more than often is. And so, but of course, we know why he was playing there. And of course, Russ knows this. And again, pragmatic, level-headed Spurs fans will also understand this, is because we didn't have any other options, chaps. This, again, people calling, oh, Maddison should have started. Maddison was nowhere near starting. And even when Maddison came on, he was not just ineffective, he was reluctant, actually. Like,
it's quite rusty, wasn't he? He was quite rusty. That first opening challenge.
Scared, Rick. You know what I mean? Like, rusty, sure. Like, Benter looked a bit rusty tonight. He didn't look scared. Maddison looked scared, which I understand. I understand. And I'm kind of pleased that he was like, you know what, let me just not do that. Because if we'd lost him for another number of weeks, we would have been absolutely scuppered. And so I didn't mind him coming along and, treading carefully, with all respect to him. Decky, what we all like about Decky, and we've waxed lyrical about Decky before, he has so many qualities, but he is he's an honest Tommy. So if you say, listen, mate, you're going to play here tonight, he'll say, yes, boss, and go and do it to the best of his ability. But his abilities are not endless. He's great at dribbling. He's got great strength. He can turn a player. He can roll a player. But City were so well organized tonight. I mean, yeah, Rodri and Kovacic were just masterful. Bernardo Silva, again, I'm looking at Bernardo Silva and I'm just like, Brian Hill, can you not just watch him, dude? You're both Spanish. Just go, mate, sorry, what is it that you're doing? Because I can't. I don't know what to do. When I get the ball, I kind of flick my hair, fabulous hair. And Bernardo will go, it is fabulous hair. And then I kind of run out of ideas. I kind of fall over. And Bernardo's just like, well, first thing you got to do is puff your chest out and understand that you're a Premier League footballer. Put your foot on the ball, look around and spread a pass. Oh, maybe I should cut my hair. Maybe you should, but you keep it because it's fabulous, lustrous. And so
TJ, I didn't think anyone could make me laugh tonight on the background feeling, but mate, I tell you,
listen, when he does a shampoo ad, if I don't get at least 10%, I'll be furious. But
mate, honestly,
so Decky will do what we ask of him, but he does have limited ability. But I agree, let's not put him in the number 10 anymore. But if we are going to play Johnson on the right, I mean, really, that's Decky's place, but we just didn't have a GLC to come and do that. We didn't have a Maddison to come in and do that. So we can only play the cards we're dealt, guys. And we're still so thin on the ground. We're missing Basuma. We're missing Sarr. We're missing Sonny. Madison's not fit. We're missing GLC. Guys, these are just the reality of what we had tonight. We all want to walk into the kitchen, with a $5 bag of grocery shopping and turn it into a gourmet meal. But sadly, that's not always possible.
Mate, thank you for that analogy. I tell you what, Crackers, he's got some work to on the back of that one, I tell you. Russ, coming over to you, if I can. Look, Sonny, I have to bring Sonny up because he's always been such a pivotal factor in this fixture. Is he the difference tonight, Russ? Because I've got to say with Sonny, the one thing I must add is that his clinical finishing that many have picked up on over the last few weeks in these big games that we've seen, quite honestly, I've got to say, I feel he could have been a difference tonight, Son. Is that fair for me to say, Russ? How do you feel about the way the timing of the fixture came round, Sonny not being available for it?
Well, I think even a coach like Guardiola will know what Son could have done to his City team. So I think he certainly would have been relieved that he wasn't part of the Spurs setup tonight, because history engraves itself in your memory, doesn't it? And it would have done for Pep Guardiola and City. Would we have won tonight with Sonny playing? I think we would have had a better chance of winning tonight. For some reason, this front three, this sort of potpourri of different styles of players isn't quite working at the moment. And I think, to be fair to Brennan Johnson, who I was pleased to see in the week, was saying how happy he is being part of Spurs and how he loves the club already, which is great to hear.
Yep,
I think that he's been playing a lot of games, as we know, that ordinarily he would not have been playing if we'd have had all our personnel fit and playing the players that are first choice in those spots. And I think he was brought into the club never to play every game, but needs must, as TJ so beautifully put it, we have got a $5 bag of shopping and we ain't going to get a gourmet meal, or to bring it this side of the pond, you can't make a silk's purse out of a sow's ear. And that's roughly where we are at the moment. But it isn't going to last long. These players are coming back. Who knows what's going to happen in the remaining 5 days of the transfer window? It's evident that we need at least a couple of top quality players to come in. Might be in the window in the summer. But I think there's everything to be excited about. And I think next season, as I've said it before, Sonny will be here, please God. We'll have some new players in the summer. Some of the ones who are not getting a chance will disappear. And I think we will be very, very dangerous football club next season, and will be a little bit closer to Manchester City, but we won't have caught up with them. But look how we played against them tonight. We weren't brilliant, but they only won 1-0. And, that's the important thing, I think, to remember. As underwhelming as we were for a lot of the game, apart from some really neat tight passing for about 10 minutes in the second half, I thought we were really bold and brave then. Not enough of that in the first half, but we weren't that far away.
Yeah.
But they are like clockwork, and you can see that they all know each other and how they play. First touch,
totally agree.
Beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
And when we're on our game at the beginning of the season, particularly first touch, beautiful to watch. But as soon as you get one little cog coming out of our wheel, it's evident we've got a problem. With City, they just bring in somebody else who can also do it.
Can I be honest? As soon as Doku come on, Russ, I just felt the game went to another level of pace, didn't it? It's just like,
Grealish can't get a look in with him.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And look at Jack Grealish. I mean, I know he's cut back and cut inside Merchant, but Doku, he just goes for it. And they are a side to behold, a lot of them. Rodri, the goalkeeper who was on the bench tonight, exceptional with his feet. I mean, I did see some, incidentally, Rick and TJ and Matt and everybody else. There was a few people having a pop at Vicario on social media after the game.
Can't believe that.
You
Vicario,
need to get a life. I mean, this bloke has been a revelation.
If we're ever going to go at Vicario, then my God, where are we at?
We might as well.
Guys, there was some Ange out. So, nothing is off limits.
I must say, though, this is the reactionary of X. I mean, I will just say, Twitter formally, I mean, it's really hard to really go off a form of a balanced opinion by going onto there. It's really, really hard.
It's not a barometer of normality.
No, of course not. Of course not. Of course not. It's just absolutely mental. Matt, bringing you in, it's hard. I don't want to keep talking about players that aren't here, because ultimately we knew they weren't going to be here and they couldn't have affected the result. But I know we had a few comments in relation to maybe Angie's tactical awareness of the game, and that's actually has been brought into question here. Frankly, Tottenham says change the formation. I mean, to be fair, Spurs were in the game. I mean, they were in the game. They're 87 minutes there. We're 0-0. We're playing, as I said, the best team in the world. You could argue maybe could have had Maddison a little bit earlier, but I think as backing up what TJ said earlier, when Maddison did come on, and it's no disrespect to Maddison, he's been out for 3-4 months. He was very, very rusty, and I totally agree with TJ that for me, he was a little bit hesitant in the tackle. He's only just come back, doesn't want to get injured again. I mean, Matt, does Postecoglou have anything to answer for tactically in that game for you?
No, not even slightly. We lost the game from a corner. And that for me is enough. We could have won that game from a corner as much as we could have lost it, and that's nothing to do with tactics. That's nothing to do with formation. It's to do with potentially a bit of weakness from the goalkeeper and a contentious decision from the referee. And I think to look at the game and the entire 90 minutes of what was a tactically brilliant and technically brilliant game of football, to look at it in such a one-dimensional way, to say that. And I'm not calling out anyone in particular here, just the kind of the overall reaction, to look at it in a way and say the tactics were wrong or Postecoglou was wrong, for me is a bit too simplistic. And to add to piggyback on one of the points that Ross so eloquently made a second ago with regards to the brilliant 10 or 15 minutes we had in the second half, I think with how complex and how complicated football is at the moment, with all these different caveats of tactical tweaks and the 150 different things that a player's asked to do. I'm not comfortable sitting here and saying Spurs were good or Spurs were bad. In the same way, I'm not going to sit here and say Johnson was good or Johnson was bad, because Johnson in the final third today, a few bad decisions. There was one or two crosses in the first half. He could have done better. I think he needs to be a bit more decisive. And those are maybe the key parts of his performance that we need to look at. But I'm also going to say that he gave us an outball in that first 60, 65 minutes that we didn't have after he went off the pitch. And his presence was extremely crucial. I thought in the first half he did really well in coming back and helping Pedro Porro defend and keep City at bay down that left-hand side, which they really did overload. So Johnson in the final third wasn't good for me today, but there were so many other aspects of his game that were good. And if we're going to sit here and say...
Never not marked. He was always man marked.
Yeah.
And whenever he received the ball, he had, probably Kyle Walker like breathing down his throat. To your point, Matty. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. No
worries. But I think that same context applies to the Tottenham performance. We were second best today, but we weren't terrible for 90 minutes. For 10, 15, 20 minutes at the start of that second half, we were controlling the game and we didn't create enough. I think that creative dynamic in the midfield wasn't there. I think we couldn't get the ball to Werner. We couldn't get the ball even to Porro and Udogie as much as we would have wanted. But I think the fact that we did have control of the game for that amount of time, that's 90% of the work done. We just missed that last 10%, which again ultimately cost us. But I feel it would be remiss of us to not acknowledge what was good about how we played, because football is just so much more than that one-dimensional thing. And Ricky, you're absolutely spot on. When Doku and De Bruyne came on, it was a different game of football. And look, it's frustrating, but for me, that's fine, because they're two players who start for the best team in the world week in, week out. De Bruyne, who potentially for me is one of the best players that's ever played Premier League football. Doku, who has been an absolute revelation and has ripped Premier League defences apart for the entire season. City just have that depth that we don't. And that's something they've been able to build over the last 5 or 6 years. That's something that Guardiola has been able to perfect with keeping that deep squad happy. Postecoglou hasn't had the chance to do that yet. He had 2 or 3 academy products on that bench tonight that were never going to impact the game. Yes, Dane Scarlett came on, but they were never going to be able to come on and change that game in the way City had players that did. So an overall... And people are giving out about what I'm saying there. I don't think we were good enough tonight, but I'm not comfortable making that umbrella statement to encapsulate a full 90-minute game of football when there were so many different phases that need to be acknowledged.
Yeah, I think the only thing for me that I'm uncomfortable with is the fact that it is 1 shot to 18. That is obviously a really damning, cold, calculated, honest, stat you can't get away from. When you're going to have 1 shot to 18, the reality is, let's be honest about it, you're not going to win too many football games unless you have got one of the most clinical finishers in the game, and arguably our most clinical finisher in the game is out in the Asian Cup. And that is the reality of the situation. And has been asked on his thoughts on James Maddison in relation to if he could have started the game. And we touched upon this a bit earlier in the show. He said, look, not really. I think knowing the nature of the game today, he trained well this week and a half, but he's missed a lot of football. We were hoping to get him some minutes, which obviously we saw he did, and he should be right to go from now on. But there's another 2 games to come next week. We need him and those on the pitch to be there, ready for those games, to pitch in. So, yeah, it wasn't really much of a dilemma, but whether to start him or not, I just felt coming off the bench was going to be better for us as a team more than anything else. And to back up, as again, keep referring to what TJ said earlier, I do feel when Madders came on, you could see that's a guy that hasn't been on the pitch for a very, very long time, and is going to take some adaptation to it. So look, it is the reality of where we're at. I think what I just want to touch on the point is that we touched on it earlier. Poor Werner, and I've got to come back around to you, Russ, because you made this point, and you know what? I think we've now got the stat. I think in the first half, there was 4 open opportunities to put Werner through. In the second half, there was an additional 3. You're looking at 7 or 8 potential openings there for Werner, and he simply wasn't picked out. Now, was that just the case that players are not seeing him? Or is that, again, just a system thing that over the next couple of weeks, we're going to hopefully adapt and work out for you, Russ?
Well, yeah, I mean, I hope we do that. Look, TJ made the point earlier that, he's only been at the club for 3 weeks and what have you, plus a load of match practice training sessions and what have you. That Ange knows he's got pace. That's why we've got him. So there must be an instruction in training, and before they go out, get the ball to Timo. Timo, you run. We know what you can do. We just weren't capable of getting the ball to him tonight. It might have been that the players I thought we played a bit hot potato football, if that makes sense, in the first half. As soon as the ball came to one of our players, normally they're very comfortable. It's, oh, get rid of it. And I think when you're playing football that quick, it's difficult just to lift your head up sometimes and find somebody like Werner, or a real raking pass to Richie, or ping the ball out to, Brennan on the right wing. And so I think it was the quality of the opposition as well. But Ange would definitely have said, let's get, the ball to Timo Werner, because City, if they're vulnerable at anything, apart from Kyle Walker, it's pace, particularly through the middle. They don't like it. And we see them continually undone in games that they probably go on to win. But invariably, that is how they concede goals or set pieces. So I really thought we had a chance with the set piece tonight, but we just didn't get a good one. We didn't deliver the ball well for whatever reason. And it's unusual, because how many times already have we seen Pedro, ball after ball after ball going into the right areas? Either the strikers weren't there, or somebody got on the end, keeper made a save, or we scored. But this in front of goal business is a recurring problem, even in the Premier League in the last month or so. We've all been saying it. Our listeners and viewers have been going, we're just not having shots. Now, why that would be, I don't know. Because I want to see what Sarr did before he went away with Senegal, was have a couple of pops at goal. He went close a couple of times, didn't he? Really close from outside the area. I think we've got to take a few more risks. But I'm not the manager. I'm just a fan who likes to see us win.
No, but listen, I mean, again, Russ, I think many that watch and listen to this show do hold your opinion in really, really high regard. And those that watch the game week in, week out won't get away from the fact that what you're saying there is really adamant and true. You can't get away from that. I mean, TJ, is there a hesitancy there in front of goal? I mean, look, it's, again, I hate to keep referring back to this. It's one shot against 18 shots. If you're not going to shoot, you're not really going to score. So you've got to provide more to the game, right? And again, I'm so sorry to keep going back on this point, guys. I'm hurting. Believe me, I'm bloody hurting. Heung-min Son, I can't get away from it. He's such a big miss to this side. That vocal presence and leader, or given the fact I thought Romero had a really, really good game, I think he worked ever so hard. And I can't question anyone's effort and application. Can I just be honest with you guys? I'm just bloody frustrated. I'm frustrated to go out the cup. I'm frustrated to go out like that. Because again, you look at the margins, isn't it? It's one goal. But I can't get away from the fact got to have more shots, TJ. Haven't we got to have more shots?
Yes, we do. And listen, brother, we share your frustration, man. We really do. And look, we're more than just panelists on a podcast, right? We're friends, so we have an emotional connection to each other and to our club. And so, we feel your pain, man. And especially to lose to a set piece, one goal, to Matty's point, a controversial goal, blah, blah, blah. To say it was there for the taking, I feel like it was. I'm watching that game thinking this could go either way. Were they the better side? Yes, they're the better side. But when do you watch a Manchester City play anybody and go, Manchester City weren't the better side? 99 times out of 10, they are the better side. And so it is annoying to just not make it, to stumble at the final hurdle. As far as having one shot, they were so good tonight. We just didn't have the opportunities. Like people saying our front three were useless, and they didn't get any service, guys. So then do you say our midfield were really useless? Important. And then you go, well, they didn't. They were, breaking their legs to try to make interceptions and blocks. Yeah. And then you go, well, the defense then didn't do their jobs. No, they all did their jobs. We were just bested by the greatest team who were really at the races tonight. And again, our front three, Johnson, I'm not going to dump on the kid. He has real potential, but he isn't there yet. And then people saying, but he cost this amount of money. And it's not up to him. He doesn't set his own price tag. He's a young English player, and young English players, especially if they're attackers, come at a premium. So just, guys, look at that as a positive. We've got this guy that other clubs wanted, and now he's at Tottenham. Again, to look at Timo Werner, people going, oh, Timo had this chance, and Timo had this chance, Timo had this chance. Can you imagine if we bought Timo and he turned out to be like he was at Chelsea? We would be going crazy. He's done 3 games at the club, and he's really starting to assert himself already. And so when players like Solomon, or if Brian Gill ever does kind of sort it out. And I've just been informed, well, several times actually, that Bernardo Silva is Portuguese, not Spanish. Of course, I was thinking David Silva, who was Spanish. If he does sort that out, he's never going to get in the team, because look at Timo Werner, or Solomon's not going to get in the team because look at Timo Werner. So these are good things, right? But we want to be the finished article in 6 months.
That's the hard. Yeah,
come on. It's so difficult to go out of yet another cup and to finish another year, probably without any trophies, to Russ's point, barring a miracle. But we're on our way, and we're playing football that we want to see. We're entertaining. And those poor performances tonight, for me, were really down to the quality of the opposition rather than the application and effort of our own players.
I agree. Look, I'm going to pick out just some key players here, then we'll look to wrap things up. Again, it's obviously really hard. And then again, I know there's that feeling. Can I just say, guys, totally do understand the frustration of going out the cup. There's no doubt about that. The manner of it still hurts. Again, just stop watching the bloody goal, I'd say, because the more you watch it, the more you get infuriated about it. But again, I will just say it's really important to have a bit of balance, to understand where we're at under this manager, and, try and come to the point of understanding that we are only 4 or 5 months into this project. Matt, on the manager, he decided to bring off Rodrigo Bentancur, which many are questioning if that was the right call. Obviously, Maddison with Skippy came on as well. Brennan Johnson went off the pitch as well. Bentancur coming off, could you understand that? I mean, look, he's only recently come back from injury, so he was clocking up the minutes really before that, wasn't he? Can you understand Bentancur coming off?
I can understand it, but from a fan point of view, I was annoyed to see it, if that makes sense. I think in games like this, it's very difficult to kind of to differentiate between the fan viewing and the more kind of analytical viewing. But look, the simple fact is, like you said, Ricky, he's just back from not 1 but 2 long injury layoffs. He only has a few hundred minutes under his belt in the last 12 months, which is really important to note. But even then, even if he had been fully fit, as TJ mentioned, those midfielders were all over the place tonight. They were sprinting the entire game, trying to keep up with that Man City midfield, who were letting the ball do the work. So it was in itself an extremely tiring game. But when you add to the fact that he had those injury concerns as well, I was annoyed, but I can see why it was done. And I was especially annoyed because we were that close to seeing Van de Ven, Maddison and Bentancur on a pitch for the first time together. And then when Maddison's coming on, Bentancur is the player that was coming off. So there was almost a nice moment there seeing them all on together. But look, I think we need to remember that this isn't career mode. Players don't come back from an injury and immediately have their full green fitness bar and they can play a full game of football. That's not the way it is. Maddison couldn't have started that game. Bentancur couldn't have played the full 90. It's frustrating, but that's the way it is. Let's look at the positive in the fact that we had them for at least some period of time, which means they're closer to being able to play a full 90. But I completely understand why he couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, just to summarize, just on Brennan Johnson, what I will just say is that I think from speaking to all the journalists that we have had this month on the shows, Matt, what's been evidently clear is that guy has been played more than what he ever probably would have imagined he would have done. I think there's been that element where that guy is, I think he's on 12, 13, 14 consecutive appearances for Spurs, when I think the element of him coming in would have been, he would have been coming off the bench in the final 20, 25 minutes to really stretch a defence with that pace. So, look, that's not me making excuses for him before we go there, because I know he's cost 50, 60 million. I get everyone wants the end product when you pay that kind of money. But that is a kid that is very, very young. And I agree with what Russ said earlier. That interview that he gave to Spurs this week on the Off the Shelf podcast, I think, look, it's good to see that he's not letting that frustration get to him from the outside. As important, he doesn't as well, because there's many like-minded Spurs fans that are level-headed, that know that kid is young, he's finding his way. And ultimately, he's got a journey ahead of him. Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, coming over to you, Russ. Look, that guy has ultimately been a player that I think we've all said so far during the month of January does want to move away. Look, you can't go away from that last 10 minutes or so. He did completely lose his head, lose his mind. Lucky boy. We could have had a couple of goals given away just in Hojbjerg alone. But in terms of the way he played that game, I've got to say that I think the way he actually started that game today, and for the 70, 80 minutes, that's the best I've seen Hojbjerg play in a Spurs shirt this season. And if you were to say to me now that you are going to keep him until the end of the season and let him go in the summer, I think I'd be okay with that. I think before today, I would have been really unsure. But I think, look, he's playing against the best team in the world. Sorry to keep saying that. And yes, I will keep saying I'm disappointed to go out of the cup, because I bloody am disappointed to go out of the cup, by the way. For those that are saying he's going to be disappointed. I'm getting sick of it, honestly. Russ, Hojbjerg on the back of that performance, maybe trying to forget the last 10, do you still keep him for you, or would there be still a likelihood to get him out the door if we can get the right man in these next 8 days, 9 days or so?
Well, I can't remember him making so quickly one mistake after another
Not like
in
that.
such a
No.
big game. So I'm prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he's an international footballer. Point number one, in the first half, probably two of the best passes from our players in that first half were made by Hojbjerg. Probably three, actually, incisive passes going forward. And he's not famous for being a good passer, but he did well in that first half. Would I keep him until the end of the season? Yeah, probably would. But as it stands right now, nobody has come in and made a bid for him. So it's going to be a late show, I think, if he does go. But I do think he's not a starter for me. Absolutely not. And I don't think
I
he's
agree.
a starter for a lot of people.
No,
in fact,
agree.
all of us probably.
Yeah.
But he does have a certain quality, particularly when you're trying to hold on to something a little bit.
Yep.
Last 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then I think he definitely would come into his own there. But he's never going to be a flair player. We know that. But what he has got is heart. He gives his all. He's a total professional.
Yeah.
And like any other human being, he's got some rickets in him. We've all made them. He made them tonight on a football pitch. Nobody died. We lost the game. I'm annoyed too, Rick.
Yeah.
Because, this monkey on the back of this football club of no trophies is the one that, as you said at the beginning of the show, Rick, we want to get off our back, really. And, even maybe at the expense of a top four finish, to actually go to Wembley and win something. Be amazing, wouldn't it?
Well, just that day out.
Such a relief,
Yeah, just for this group, Russ. I keep saying it, and again, sorry to sound like a broken record. I really like this group, TJ. And I think we've said this actually a few times this season, that you can really relate to the group, to Ange. And look, I am, for those bingo card callers, I am conscious of time. So look, before I try and look to close this, TJ, I just want to come to you very quickly. One player that I think can most certainly stand up for himself in that performance was Mickey van der Ven. I mean, that guy was absolutely everywhere in regards to that back line tonight. Did a lot of covering in the space behind Romero. To be fair to Romero, I think he got better as the game wore on, I think. And he made a terrific last-ditch block to deny Alvarez. It was really a terrific performance from that young man. And again, we're talking about Mickey van der Ven, that is still in his first season at the football club. How much should we be really, really buoyed by that performance from Mickey, in your opinion, TJ?
Yeah, massively. And also he's done that consistently. Like, he's one of those players that arrives at the football club, and again, if you were making a movie about it, then he would kind of light it up from game one, and that's what he's done. And of course, coming in and setting such a high precedent for himself, he now has an enormous weight of responsibility on his shoulders. But there are just some people, that's why we have that expression, cometh the man, cometh the hour, cometh the man. And he is one of those people that just seems to improve the more pressure that is heaped upon him. And also, when De Bruyne came on and thought that he could get a bit of change out of the guy, he couldn't. And there was that incident when De Bruyne kind of, shoulder barged him over the line. And I mean, Van der Ven literally laughed at him. And, Kevin de Bruyne is one of the greatest exponents of the game ever to grace the Premier League. And Mickey van der Ven, who's been in the Premier League for 6 months, is laughing at the guy. So he's obviously got bags of confidence as well as bags of technical ability and strength and vision and all the rest of it. So again, to the broader points that we've been making tonight, not to shy away from the fact that we're all frustrated at the performance and also frustrated about going out of a cup which is so dear to us. But Mickey van der Ven is going to be one of the foundation stones upon which we're going to build this tower, which will hopefully take us to the promised land. And so there are so many positive things about this team. And again, I'm not making excuses. This is just how I feel. I'm annoyed at losing a game. You never want to lose a game of football, but we did lose a game. I mean, we lost it in a manner that felt like, well, that really could have gone either way. We weren't played off the park. It was nothing like that. It wasn't turgid. It wasn't Conte. It wasn't Mourinho. It was nothing like that. And again, Ricky, I think that's why you and so many of us, myself included, have enormous affection for the club again. You know, it's not just like, oh God, please win, because you know, when you pick a team when you're a kid, you know, that's it. It's a lifelong commitment. I think that there is genuine affection for these young lads, and we want success for them as much as we want it for ourselves. And again, that has not always been the case at the club. So just a bit of perspective, perhaps, for fans who are feeling annoyed or angry, and there seem to be a lot of them out there. You know, look at this young group of lads and see how they're playing for each other, pulling for each other, and of course, marching to the beats of this new manager that we brought in, who has been entirely transformative.
Yeah, look, TJ, again, I will echo those words. Look, trying to, and before I get hammered for bringing this up, no, it isn't last one on Liverpool, but obviously it's been pretty sensational news that has come through in this last 24 hours, and that, of course, is Jurgen Klopp is leaving Liverpool.
Yeah.
I just wonder, guys, as we look into close this one, if that at all really changes Spurs' position in the narrative of what that means for the future. You know, number one, we've had a report come through, and again, many will maybe criticise me bringing this to air, but look, we had Matt Law on during the summer. I think Matt is a very credible journalist, and one that I feel should be taken seriously given his close links to Spurs that are out there. And they do say that and is viewed as a potential dark horse for Man City's target list, which does make me laugh a little bit, given the fact that we all know Ange is a big Liverpool fan. There we are on the day that Klopp is leaving Liverpool. We're not fearing him going to Liverpool. We're fearing him going to Man City. But that's a separate report. But just in relation to Liverpool and losing Klopp, is that a good or a bad thing, guys? I mean, have we got any concern, Russ, with you that we'll look at Postecoglou now? Would they 6 months into a new project? They want a proven winner there, don't they? Or someone along those lines?
It was interesting today, Rick, that Bayer Leverkusen said that they would be happy for Xabi Alonso to speak to somebody and go somewhere else in the summer. So it makes you wonder, because Liverpool have definitely looked at him. Obviously, a former player as well, plays the sort of football that Liverpool would like, whether there is some kind of agreement there. But, you know, as a general point, I think Klopp is an amazing football manager. And I think he's brought an awful lot to European football, German football, and now English football with Liverpool. Without Guardiola, I think he would have won even more trophies. Yeah. And actually, him hanging his managerial boots up, so to speak, at the end of the year is great for him, and we wish him well for the future. Hopefully, it'd be good for the rest of the teams in the Premier League, that Liverpool won't be quite so good. But for the Premier League as a whole, I don't think it's great. We used to get the very, very best managers. We certainly have those now. And we've got some of the world's best players, which we never quite used to have. They were always on the way down, weren't they? Most of them when they came. But they came. And I just think that the Premier League as a product is slightly weakened without a Jurgen Klopp. It's my own personal opinion.
Do you think, though, Russ, a Liverpool side potentially in transition next season, depending on who that coach is, whether it be a Xabi Alonso, gives Spurs a chance to potentially go above them? Or do you think that's a far-fetched opinion?
Well, no, I don't think it's far-fetched. The only team that I think are far and away of everybody else in the Premier League when they're on form is Man City. Okay. We've seen them tonight. You know, they get the job done, but look at the way they played in the first half and the way they played generally week in and week out. De Bruyne, by the way, didn't start because he did say after the last Premier League game that he couldn't play more than 25 minutes, and so it proved tonight. But Liverpool, I mean, if we could play Liverpool in an FA Cup game, I wouldn't be as concerned as I would be about playing City.
Okay.
Personally.
Yep. I mean, Matt, come over to you. Give me your thoughts on that, and also the fact, Matt, it does mean for Spurs it is a 41-game season. So bringing that into context with what we've heard today with Klopp and everything to go with that, what do you feel holds the key for the rest of the season for Tottenham?
Yeah, first I just want to echo Russ's sentiments on Jurgen Klopp. I pretty much tweeted the exact same thing earlier. Now I did caveat that tweet by saying that I don't particularly like Klopp, but I didn't think that was relevant to the situation. I just wanted to kind of get ahead of the people who'd discredit the rest of what I said with a lot of old tweets about the man. But he is one of the best managers the Premier League has seen. His record speaks for that. And while I'm happy to see a rival and a club that I don't quite like be weakened, it is definitely a loss for the Premier League. And he said himself today that he's never going to manage another English club. So it is a loss to the league. But I think it's a great opportunity for Spurs. And in the same context as we're 7-8 years behind Manchester City in the project, next year we're going to be a year ahead of Liverpool. And they've made a lot of signings, especially in the summer, that are kind of tailor-made for a Jurgen Klopp system. Some of them worked in Wataru Endo and a few others. Some of them haven't worked, like Gravenberch hasn't lived up to the expectation. But as much as Alonso plays a similar kind of overarching style of football where it's the high intensity, high press, proper football, the kind of tactical nuances in that might not suit the players that Klopp has brought in to work in his system. So there's going to be a lot of fine tuning that will need to be done there. One thing I am terrified of is Trent playing the Alonso role, because I think he'd be utterly ridiculous in that. So we could see him even hit a new level. But yeah, it can only be a good thing for Spurs. Liverpool aren't going to be better than what they were under Klopp. He constantly got a tune out of that team and constantly made the sum of the parts, or that phrase, constantly made that true in what he did at Liverpool. So that they will be off, and it's a good chance for us to try and get a little bit ahead of them in the race. Whether we can or not will remain to be seen. But it's definitely an opportunity. Okay. TJ, thoughts on that for you, and whether that does help or hinder Spurs depending on who goes into Anfield next?
I mean, listen, I think the boys have covered it. I'll just keep it brief. Personally, I feel the same as Matty. Terrific manager, not for me personally, just whinges too much. Somebody trips over a shoelace and he's writing a letter to the PGMOL, like, dear God, grow up, man. I think it was King Hoddle who posted that he'll miss his teeth. That did make me smile. He reminds me of that episode of Friends, when Ross whitens his teeth. Reminds me of that for all you Friends fans out there. Maybe that's just me. So listen, fair play to the guy, see ya.
CJ, I want to close it on this final question to everyone.
Yeah.
41 game season for Tottenham now. Obviously, where we are, we're 3 points off the current top four. Mm-hmm. What for you now would be deemed a success this season for Tottenham?
Well, talking of people that I don't really care for personally, but I respect their careers, Gary Neville was talking in the press last week about how Tottenham are going to be a frightening prospect coming towards the business end of the season. So if you think about the players that we have coming back, this afternoon for me, this evening for you, we've been lamenting the absence of certain players. Well, when we get them all back, we are looking very, very tasty, very, very tasty indeed. When certain clubs tend to fall off towards the end of the season, I think that that's when we will be finding our strength. And the fact that I believe that we will still be positioned around about the same place, I think will be the 6th, 5th or 4th coming into the last kind of 10 to 12 games of the season. So as long as we are still within touching distance at first, I think those young players, the thing is about being young is you sort of lack the knowledge to be afraid. You lack certain trepidation. And so I think that coming into the last couple of months at the end of the season, we're going to have a concerted push and are going to be a bit of a terrifying prospect. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. And who knows, maybe we'll be on a show in a couple of months' time saying, my goodness, we're within touching distance, lads. Maybe we could go on and win the whole bloody thing.
TJ, thank you, mate. It is always therapy when needed when you're on, mate. Thank you so much. Oh, mate, can't thank you enough. Russ, come over to you. Then we're going to close it with Matty. Russ, for you now, I mean, look, I know we're both of us and all of us here, we weren't going to like it. We are gutted to go out. Yeah. What for you now, in your opinion, Russ, is deemed as a successful season, given the fact where we are in the league at the moment, players to come back? Give me your thoughts for you.
Everyone back, everyone stays fit, and even with no further additions, with Ange Ball back, I am quite optimistic like TJ. Look at the people around us. Newcastle, Tottenham are better than them. Aston Villa, think we're better than them. Arsenal, honestly, I think we're better than them when everyone is fit and raring to go. Liverpool, we're not far away from them. City, we're quite away from them. So on that basis, third. There you go. That's where I think we'll finish.
Russ,
And I hope we do. Incidentally, Rick, just a quick doff of our caps to the victors tonight. Man City often accuse their fans of not giving us stuff about anything really and just accepting all the glory that they get. Well, 9,000 were at our stadium tonight and they've got a nightmare journey home. And I think as fellow football fans, we should sympathise with them a little bit because they're good fans, proper fans.
Russ, thank you, mate. Sorry to bring you back on this nature of a defeat.
That's all right. Sorry about the loss of internet earlier.
No, don't be silly.
We had a glimpse of the dog, didn't we, as well?
Oh, mate, your words of wisdom always go far. We look forward to that very, very soon, mate. Pleasure is all ours. Honestly, keeping these guys up later than what we should do. Thank you so much. Matty, I want to close it with you. Oh, mate, what a journey. What a marathon we've had so far this season. Look, can't get away from it. As we said, we have to move on. We have to find a way. Vicario has just come out on Instagram and said, gutted to be out of the FA Cup. Proud of this group. We keep fighting till the end. A massive thanks to the fans. The one thing I do know, Matt, is that if you take our minds back to that FA Cup exit of last season, and many don't want to go back there, I think at that point, many felt the season was done, if you remember. Ryan Mason came in. It felt almost like the season was petering out. If anything, there is still, I believe, and that sounds silly, me saying this where top four is not my everything and Champions League isn't everything for me, but it does feel like there's still a lot to play for this season for Ange. And I think, if anything, this defeat, again, just emphasises the point that we're still, in my opinion, 2 to 3 windows away of getting Ange the players that he needs to really be able to compete at this level and have the resources and the tools to do what the man can do. So, Matt, give me your thoughts now as we go into what many will call, into February, the business end of the season. What can Spurs achieve, in your opinion?
Look, I think it's such a crucial point to bring up, kind of where we were towards the end of last season. Quickly on the top four, I think we're better than Aston Villa. Villa now have themselves in an FA Cup replay. Could be more games there for them. While I'd like to lay them a little bit higher than that, I think top four is something that's well within our control. But I think it's difficult to manage expectations throughout a season when we overperform a lot of the time, way beyond what our wildest dream was when Ange Postecoglou came in. And to touch on one of the intangible successes that we could have from this season, and I'm going to ask for a bit of audience engagement here. How many people right now are in love with this team? If you're in love with the team, just put a yes in the live chat. And I appreciate the listeners on audio won't get the full benefit of what I'm expecting is a flurry of messages to come in. But the reality of the situation is last summer, this club couldn't find people to take season tickets. And this week, tickets for Luton and Nottingham Forest sold out in 10 minutes. And no disrespect at all to Luton and Nottingham Forest. But the simple fact of the matter is we're back in love with this football club. We're back in love with this team. Ricky, you said it. You said it earlier. And for those on audio, it started a flurry of message. Even Dan thinks we're going to be champions. The simple fact is we're back in love with this football club. And the most difficult thing as a fan, and I said this a lot last season when we were going through the rough times, for me, I'd rather be angry and frustrated and sickened at what I'm seeing on the football pitch than just not care anymore. And I think for a lot of us last season, it did get to that point where we struggled to care because it felt as though those within the club and those on the pitch didn't. But we have that passion back. We have that drive back. And we know that those who are representing our football club every Saturday have that drive and passion back. And for that to continue to grow and for that progress to continue to be there over the next 6 months, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however long Ange Postecoglou is there, those base intangible successes are really, really important to me. I hope there's going to be more, and I do believe there will be more to come along with that. But as a start, as the first 6 months, I'm damn happy with the trajectory of this club.
Matty, thank you so much. Guys, look, I think for all of our sakes, for our souls, we should leave it there. Difficult night. Look, it's the game, it's the result. None of us really wanted to review, but we have to do it. And that's why you've got, in my opinion, these top tier, amazing people that allow you to have a understanding and some therapeutic nature of what it is like being Spurs fans. And I mean, actually tuning and watching, so I'm not even Spurs fan, which is actual credit to the amazing guests that come on here and give their wisdom on Spurs that many simply love and enjoy. Guys, thank you so much for your incredible support. We've had a couple of thousand of you watching this live. So again, I can't thank you enough. We've been joined by broadcast extraordinaire, Russ Williams. Russ, thank you so much, mate. We really appreciate an absolute star. The brilliant TJ Ramini, actor TJ Ramini, and the superb Matty Hayes on this last word on Spurs. Look, it is a missed opportunity. There's no doubt about it. There's a huge amount of perspective in there, but don't give up. It is a great team. It's a great manager. It's an exciting time to be a Spurs fan. Don't let anyone tell you any differently than that. It is a team that could be going places. So it is really important for these next 3-4 months now. We do get behind the boys. We get behind the players and the manager and ensure we finish the season, hopefully, with securing European football, wherever that may be. From TJ, from Russ, from Matt. Guys, have been the last one on Spurs. Thank you so much for all your support. Please keep safe, keep well. We're back with you soon. And as always, come on, you Spurs.